What's up, everyone? Hello, hello. Gotta start my recordings and everything too. I actually realized something today when I was setting everything up. I realized that I didn't actually. I could have swapped my monitor display yesterday. Um, I'm basically using the setup that I bring to weeklies and events and stuff as my main PC monitor. Um, and yeah, I could have just used that instead of the big screen. I could use the big screen for my stream. So that's what I'm doing instead today. But yeah, that's the gist. Um, all right. Well, yeah, exactly. No more delay. Though I kind of wish I thought of it earlier. That's on me though. Um, okay. So I guess we'll get into it. Like I said, um, in the post. Well, I guess we may as well do a little bit more energetic of an intro. But like I said in the post, just feel free to ask questions at any point. I'll probably double check for questions as well too. Um, but we'll get to it. Alrighty, let's take a look here. All right, check this out. I have a whiteboard. All right, so we're going to be doing recovery theory today. Um, if you aren't here right now, feel free to leave a comment in the video later, just asking any questions that you have. Otherwise, if you're here live, feel free to ask any questions as we go along. Um, but yeah, today we're going to be talking about recoveries. So, gist of recoveries is that we see them a lot in matches, and there are going to be three main things we're going to focus on, but we're going to get into a lot of nitty gritty as we go along. So, the first thing that's really important to pay attention to pay attention to your opponent. Welcome, Aiden. Um, kind of self explanatory in that sense, but you're not really going to be able to form a proper recovery if you aren't seeing what the other guy's doing, especially considering if they're trying to edgeguard you. You want to make sure that you're out of the way. Number two is to know the limits to your own recovery. So, a lot of times when we're recovering, we don't actually need to use the full extent of our recovery. We actually have a lot of mix up in between. And if you know the bounds, if you know the limits, then you're able to adjust and make sure that you kind of take full advantage of what you're given as a character. And lastly, if there's a punish window, make it small. And that's kind of more importantly, if there is one. Because sometimes you might be able to find a route that actually doesn't have any resistance, or maybe you're able to kind of just win stage positioning as it is, right? And you might not necessarily need to get punished, but sometimes there are going to be certain situations where you're trying to pass through a point that the opponent is also at or also covering, and you will have to make sure that you keep that window small so that there's not a lot of possibilities for them to hit you. So those are the three things. We'll be doing a mix of lots of different things, so we'll be taking a look at some gameplay stuff. So I'm going to run over to gameplay real quick and just show you a little bit of stuff. But we're also going to go into some video examples of just a few different things to consider here. So yeah, let's get started. All right, as you can see, we have a lovely pit here. And lots of things to consider with recovery here. But I would say the thing that's most difficult for lots of people to consider usually tends to be taking full advantage of both the horizontal and the vertical. So the idea is that a lot of times when we're off stage, we can take advantage of both of these kind of directions. So if we're very far out, the benefit for it, at least against an edge guarder, is that they generally have to go further out to go and punish this. And this can take more resources, this can take more time. If it takes more time, we have a better chance to react. And same thing kind of applies up in the air as well too. You can see I'm a very agile, mobile character like Pit, so I can get up there, but not every character can, right? And some characters only get one double jump. So it's not that easy to just commit to that space because, let's say, for example, you choose wrong. How easy is it for you to actually make it back in time? So for example, if I decide to drop all the way down like this, I probably have to use my resources to get back to the stage, right? To pass through ledge first, for example. Up here, maybe I might not have to, but it's still going to take me some time to pass back and return, right? So where I'd prefer to be able to have to punish people is somewhere a little bit more in my wheelhouse. So for example, on the stage here, maybe near the ledge, that sort of thing. This makes it a lot easier. Now, not every character is entirely limited in this sense. So for example, I have arrows and I can shoot in a variety of directions. But this is something to keep in mind, I guess kind of more case by case, character by character kind of thing. Not every character can do that. But for the ones that do, then you have to be, you're not completely free and safe in those far directions. But it does make their callouts a little bit more intentional. And when we're making our recoveries here, the main thing also is to try and make sure that you are, again, minimizing the window of punish. So how you want to minimize the punish window and grab ledge as closely as you can. Basically last moment almost sort of thing. What's up, Moo? No, I did not forget my face cam was Megamind. I'm Megamind today. But basically, if you can sweep in at the last second, then you can avoid a lot of extra punishes. So basically, less clean snaps, for example. So for example, if I'm hanging out like this here, that's a lot of opportunity for someone to be able to punish me. And I would prefer not to be doing this, right? Because anything could hit me here. Let's say, for example, a wolf down smash, a down air, right? Anything. You need this title, Megamind Mastery Recoveries. Be a good idea. Maybe I'll make a quick adjustment. Okay, there it is. I'll just steal your There we go. It's not exactly the same, but it's close. We'll put Ryu next to us here as well, too. Honestly, maybe not Ryu. Let's swap the character up. Yo, Silver, welcome. I'll get to that question in just a second, Aiden. So hold that thought. Okay, so I'm going to use Roy because Roy's pretty good at ledge trapping. But, I mean, basically the thing is we also have to be pretty careful with a lot of his moves near the ledge, right? Wolf would be a really good example here as well, too. Lots of characters can do very well here. But again, the idea is we don't really want to spend too much time vulnerable in these spots, right? Especially like if I was up in the air here, hovering around. At this kind of positioning, it's really not that hard for an opponent to just send an attack out, right? They don't even have to go off stage at that spacing. So a lot of players try to pass through this sort of area here. And I'll show it on the board later as well too. But this is more or less kind of a danger zone. So you do have to be careful when you're passing through this area because the opponent is the one that's going to have the stage positioning. So you don't really want to force this every time. There may be times where you have to, just to kind of check, but you are checking. You're testing to see if the opponent's actually going to cover it or not. Now, Aiden, you were asking, is it better to recover high, or are we just talking about being down on the ledge? So that, I think, depends a little bit on the character that you're playing. If you are in a good position to recover high, the benefit for it is that you are able to usually skip a lot of ledge interactions. You are able to avoid cornering yourself off stage. So again, the idea is it may not look like there's really a corner here, but if I end up putting myself down below, I can cut off a lot of the angle as an edge guarder if I put myself in between pit and the ledge, right? If I can do that, then a lot of recoveries are going to be stuffed. So if I have a higher angle, it'll basically let me potentially land on the stage so that if somebody does drop down here, I just pass over them, right? We'll go over that a little bit later as well too. But I would say one of the things that's really, really helpful for this sort of thing is really just trying to, I would say the higher priority is to make sure that you keep high and low recoveries available for as long as possible. I would say that's probably the best strategy starting out. From there, you can kind of tailor it based off of where they're trying to cover. But if you have both options available, you may be able to create kind of a mismatch between where they're covering and where you wind up later. So for example, if you fast fall down or if you end up having a jump to cancel the momentum, you may be able to force them into a spot that makes it easier for the recovery. How do you know when you lost your second jump? So basically, I mean, the main thing, I can't really show it as pit here, but I'm sure lots of people are familiar with this. Let's just use hero, why not? So generally, I mean, the way that you know if you lost your double jump is off of the ripple underneath the feet here, right? And so if you're ever jumping or thinking about jumping, I pay attention to that area of the character, just underneath there. Sometimes it can get blended in very easily with other hits or other sort of effects. But you do have to pay pretty close attention to that because your jump is extremely valuable in these sort of situations, right? If I don't have a double jump, it dramatically changes how I have to recover. And for a lot of characters, it can kind of make or break the recovery, right? Sometimes you just can't make it back. Can't make it back even with kind of the rest of your kit available. You just need the double jump to get closer to the stage. So we're going to return back to here. There we go. Okay. So let's take a ledge like this. I'll even make it look kind of like Battlefield or Small Battlefield. I know it doesn't look very pretty, but so I talked earlier about how there is horizontal distance up until basically, let's just say like, I'll make this red. We'll say this is the magnifying glass or even the blast zone. Do you think it's a good habit to actually pay attention to the double jump rings? I would say so, yeah. You'd really want to know whether or not you have a double jump, especially if you only have one. So we do have the horizontal distance here, and we also have the vertical distance here, right? And so as an opponent trying to edge guard, it requires quite a bit of coverage. There's a lot of space in here, right? In fact, probably almost as much, if not more, than the stage itself. So that's a lot of space to have to cover, and they have to be pretty smart about it because we have mix-ups available with stuff like jumps, stalling moves. We can throw hitboxes out to block, potentially, parts of the edge guarding process. Taking full advantage of this space depends because if we get knocked away at like a very tough angle like this, chances are it's harder to take advantage of this space above, right? Basically, we would have to expend a lot of our energy trying to get up here into this space, right? Which means that sometimes it may force us into more sort of lower recoveries. And by high versus low recoveries, what I'm sort of referring to, I'm just going to draw it out real quick here, but when I'm talking about a high versus low recovery, I'm basically taking the ledge as basically the distinction between high and low. So something like this. Not perfect, but you get the gist, I think. And so if you are grabbing the ledge, I would consider that a low recovery. If you are going onto the stage, I'd consider that a high recovery. Although you can start from above like this and, for example, drop down to the ledge or air dodge to the ledge from above the line. That's all possible, right? And so what I said earlier, you want to try and keep both of these options possible for as long as possible. So let's say, for example, someone is recovering and they are, let's just say right here, right? And the edge guarder is sitting over here. So if the edge guarder decides to kind of challenge out, there's a little bit of time that's going to pass before they actually can hit with a move. Assuming that the opponent, or like not the opponent, the recoverer, is not kind of drifting accordingly, right? If they're both moving at the same time, they're probably going to meet in a space around here, which then makes it a little bit more easy for the opponent to potentially hit you, right? But for the purposes of this character's recovery, they may not actually need to get this close to be able to grab the ledge, right? A lot of characters can get quite a bit of distance off of their up Bs. They might have a tether, all that sort of thing. So a lot of times we can actually be a little further away to grab the ledge. And we want to manage our drift. We don't want to, as soon as we get launched away, just constantly hold in, because again, we drag that sort of horizontal distance closer. We make it a little easier for the opponent to just hit us. So we want to pay attention to what the opponent is doing. If, for example, they're staying on the stage and they're not moving out off stage. So let's go like this. if they're staying on stage and they're not going off stage, chances are they're probably trying to cover somewhere near ledge or they're trying to run ledge trap. And so in this sort of situation, we don't necessarily need to quickly make a dash for the ledge, right? We can actually kind of take our time, maybe even try and settle up for an area where we can hug underneath the stage, make it a little harder for them to hit us just straight up. Or maybe over here, for example, and then give ourselves a timing mix-up to grab the ledge. This is because they're most likely going to be covering that, and if we kind of know the general area of where they're trying to cover, we want to make as many kind of possible windows to grab that ledge as possible. We might even be able to kind of chill here and potentially double jump up to hit them, right? Knock them out of that position, right? Or throw a projectile at them, something like that. Now, if the opponent decides that they want to, again, kind of go out for an edge guard, let's just put them like here, for example. They're going to end up dropping down here, and they have to expend resources to stay out in this area, right? Or expend resources to cover this area up here. The gist is, once they get out into these spaces, they're going to have to make an attempt to recover to the stage. Basically, there's a limit to how far they can reach out comfortably or how far they can reach out before they'll SD, right? So for example, going like all the way out here for most characters is basically just going to be the end because they probably aren't going to have enough resources to come back. They basically have to jump out there and then double jump to put some sort of hitbox out over here. Even going out into this area kind of requires a double jump. So it's kind of just starting into the limit of their sort of spacing there. But in the same time frame, if they end up extending into those areas, but we manage to sneak through, then we may be able to even reverse the stage positioning. So say, for example, someone goes out to edge guard because they see that maybe someone is kind of chilling here and they start to drop down. We may be able to jump above them, right? And take the stage positioning with a very high, kind of aggressive recovery. And this obviously depends. Certain characters can bounce back pretty quickly. So like Bayo and ZSS sometimes don't mind you actually being above them or passing behind them because they can recover pretty quickly with something like flip jump or an ABK. But if they're going low, there's a chance that you may be able to pass over and avoid just the punish period, right? We want to try and find the path of least resistance. If we're like down here, for example, and an opponent is chilling here, this is the angle cutoff thing I was talking about, where basically the idea is that the opponent, if they notice that our recovery needs to grab the ledge here, this becomes basically a choke point. And they just have to make sure that they cover this area, kind of something like this, right? Maybe a little bit further out, depending on if we have a mix-up to potentially jump over and just try and snap the ledge like that. But chances are we're going to have to pass through here instead, right? And if they can cover that, there's a good chance that the edge guard will be successful for them, or at the very least it will kind of rinse and repeat. Basically, it'll just set up the same thing again. And yeah, we have to be careful of putting ourselves in these situations intentionally, right? If we're going to be starting from a low recovery, we want to make sure that we have enough resources available or enough kind of timing available. So again, the vertical can play a big factor in this, of choosing when to up B, let's say, the angle that we choose to up B. And we want to be wary of that sort of stuff because now the window is getting smaller. The possibilities are becoming fewer. So it is a little easier for someone to potentially edge guard you. But it doesn't mean that we should never go for these edge guard or never go for these recoveries. There are lots of characters where they'll be stuck in these sort of situations naturally. Lots of characters where they don't have a hitbox on their up B, let's say, or whenever they kind of land on stage, it's got an immense amount of lag to it. So they wouldn't really want to go on stage unless they're able to knock the opponent away somewhere. And there's one more thing to keep in mind actually with a lot of these ledge grab sort of things. Oop, goodness. It's a bit of a makeshift hanging situation. Okay, that looks jank, but I think you know what I mean. Another thing that's really important to keep in mind for characters, and this is specific to each character, is that there is also a ledge grab box. So the idea is that on the character, there is a hitbox where if it interacts with the ledge, they will grab it. So this is important because the spacing of this varies. But the idea is that if we can maximize the disjoint, so to speak, on it, it can give us a safer recovery for most of the grab. There's still going to be a 2-frame window depending on how we grab the ledge. But if we start doing the snap, then we may be able to start it from lower. Let's see here. I'll show that in game here. I think that might be the best play. So we're just going to do this. Basically, Pit's ledge grab box is actually pretty decent. Not every character is made equal. But the gist is, for example, if I do this upbeat like this here, maybe I'll just, I don't know. I guess we'll just do normal. If I do an upbeat like this, for example, I can grab the ledge. This is part of the ledge grab animation. So you can see there's 2 frames there, and then now I'm invincible. That's the blue. But if I end up kind of hugging this stage like this, let's say I'm playing a character that, I'm recovering against a character. Let's say I'm recovering against a character that likes to 2-frame. So let's say like Lucas or like Wolf. These sort of ledge grabs, especially like this one here, for example, has a pretty high potential of getting 2-framed, right? And a lot of it beforehand too, especially when like hugging the wall like this, a lot of this could potentially hit through the stage as well too. So we have to be careful about these sort of things. We may be able to avoid some of the punish by being able to kind of maximize the ledge grab. We can definitely get further away on this one, for example. It's mostly on the rising motion of it rather than the grab animation itself. I think this grabs ledge. Yeah. So a lot of that sort of rising motion when we're close to the stage can be vulnerable. Whereas if we can get a little further away, we may be able to avoid some of it. We also sometimes can be able to come in from the side. If we end up having our head above the ledge when we grab it, that one was 1 frame, but if we have it like quite high, I find the easiest way to do this is actually holding down on the up B here. But if we have our head just above the ledge, then we'll have full invincibility. This is why like a lot of like air dodge recoveries, directional air dodge recoveries are super hard to cover, is because it has maybe a little bit less of a window or no window once they actually grab the ledge for the 2-frame. We want to keep that in mind as well. And one more thing I'll also make a note of here is the longer that you're off stage, the longer your actual ledge invincibility. So some characters like to take advantage of this, especially tether characters. They'll just kind of hang there. Some of that is actually to get more invincibility, more invulnerability, I should say. So if I just end up grabbing the ledge, it lasts this long, right? I'll show it again. But if I really stall and take my time out here, it's this long, right? So I don't know if you notice it, but even based off of this, it's significantly longer, right? It can get super, super long. And this can be nice to keep in mind when, for example, we're at super high percent, because at high percent, we also have less ledge invincibility to begin with, right? So let's say like 100%, right? We lose it very quickly, but if we are able to stall it out a little bit more, then we can get more of it, right? So that can just help out with getting off of the ledge as well too. So, any questions so far? How are we feeling? All right. Aiden asks, how do you make it take longer to grab the ledge or make the head go a little bit higher? So, do you play Pit? Remind me again. I think you do, right? I'll wait before I like fully kind of put it together here. Yes, you play Pit. Okay, so taking longer to grab the ledge. The nice bit for us as Pit players is that we do have multiple jumps. I would say that helps a lot. Although I would say this is kind of an extra point to a lot of the recovery stuff, because we have so many kind of possibilities as Pit. We can recover from the sides, we can air dodge to the ledge, we can ledge snap side B, we can hug the stage, we can even stage wrap, right, and recover to the other side depending on where we're getting launched from. There are lots of possibilities where we might not even have to worry about how long our legend vulnerability actually is. But if we wanted to take advantage of it, one of them is being able to use our jumps, being able to use an up B just because it's going to have a little bit more in terms of travel time, I guess, so to speak. Those are good ways that you can potentially enhance it. And as for kind of making the head go a little bit higher, I'd say some of that is a little difficult to actually replicate. I would say for the most part where most characters end up making it happen is they'll basically do an air dodge to ledge like this, right? Some characters have it made better than others. The main issue that can come up with this one, depending on the character you're playing, is that you can see there's a vulnerability window here. And so even though we're kind of just drifting to the stage, it does have the potential to get punished for doing that. And we have to do it from a certain distance, because if we don't, we just won't grab ledge. This will grab ledge, but if, for example, I do it from like here, I think this might still be able to grab, but I'm going to hold back. This won't grab now. Wait, it did. Never mind. This one won't, though. Yeah. If we do that, then we may potentially be putting ourselves in a tricky spot, right? So something to always watch out for there. Let me show you a fun one, actually. So this is a bit of a ledge grab box moment. So we'll pick Ness here, for example. But say I do an air dodge like this, maybe not that one exactly, but I could do one like this, for example. Looks like I might not grab ledge, right? But I actually can, right? And if you look at the actual, like, frame data, or like the frames of Ness here, I'm actually pretty far out here, right? So when I grab the ledge, that's like my vulnerable frame. And then by the next frame, I've already pulled in with invincibility, right? Or invulnerability, I should say. I've already pulled in with invulnerability here. So this is really hard to punish on its own. Not unless, like, the only way really is if I go out there myself and punish it, right? That's going to be the way that I punish it for the most part. And that would explain why a lot of characters, for example, can actually get through the sort of potential edgeguard situations by just kind of air dodging through, right? But you can't really take full advantage of like the invincibility to ledge grab, right? There's going to be a vulnerable window at some point or another, right? So it is going to exist, so even for Pit there too. Does that answer your question? And does anybody else have any questions? Well, I guess for the time being, I'll take that as question answered, and I'll assume for now that nobody has any questions at the moment. Yeah, no worries. What we will do now is going to be one more thing we're going to do today, and we're going to take a look at some examples. So I've grabbed a couple of clips, and we're just going to break down, discuss a little bit of the stuff going on in the clips. And this will help us to kind of visualize some of these various ways that edge guards can go down or recoveries can go down. Try to remember not to go really near to the ledge. It's better to use the frame data. Yeah, I think the main thing... I'll go back to Pit here real quick. The main thing here is you want to keep this window very small, right? You want to basically grab the ledge pretty cleanly, pretty neatly. So if you are drifting towards the ledge, for example, you don't want to be drifting down within this space here. This is a space that can be very dangerous, very easy for someone who's potentially trying to hold stage position, can just very easily challenge. So you don't really want to hang out here and drop down to grab the ledge, right? If anything, you're going to want to come in from the side and kind of close in at the last second, right? At a spot where, as we're sort of dropping down, I can't really get any lower because I need to start grabbing the ledge, right? So that's what's, I would say, most important there. You want to try and make sure that you get a nice clean ledge grab. What's up, Real? Welcome, welcome. Congrats. Better to know the invulnerability frame. Sorry. So it's better to know the invulnerability frames and exploit them better. Yeah, I guess the best we can so that we don't get hit. Yeah, do some research on your character. Try and learn where their ledge grab hitbox is. It's very important to know where you can actually grab the ledge from, because you may be able to grab it like a little bit sooner than you think without having to go all the way into the ledge, right? So if I kind of hang out here, I'll be able to just grab the ledge anyways. Like that, right? But you can see that there's windows where I can't. So for example, I'm in the middle of this double jump here. This doesn't really work very well, does it? So that's why I tend to do the side B thing that you might sometimes see, where I'm kind of just here and I'll hit a side B. That is sometimes done to basically try and avoid some of that hang time on the jump. Do I do one-on-one teaching sessions? I do. We can hit exclamation point member here right now, but this would be an explanation of some of it. I do some more in-depth coaching outside of the membership stuff there. Ooh, I just realized I messed up the my chat portion. That would explain a lot, actually. I was like, why is this coming out so like small and stuff? Okay, I think this is the correct size now. Okay, there we go. But yeah, I do two different tiers. So I do one where it is a best of 5 with advice or VOD review, or I do a first of 5 with advice and VOD review. Otherwise, I have a separate kind of 5-session set that goes a little bit more in depth into stuff like the theory here. But if you are interested in that, I think DMing me on Discord tends to be the best way to go about that for now. That or Twitter. But yeah. Okay, let's take a look at the interactions I was talking about. I want to look at those real quick. And I'm just going to have to set up chat on my phone because at the moment I only have one monitor. So it's very easy for me to not be able to see. Oh, interesting. Okay, there it is. Sorry. Alrighty. Let's take a look. So I have 4 examples I really want to go over here. I think, yeah, you should be able to see the cursor here. So we'll take a look at a few of them here. So the first one here is going to be Spargo versus Zomba. I guess I'll mute all of these because I honestly don't need the sound. Okay. So first one here is going to be Spargo versus Zomba. A really, I guess, common situation for a lot of players, and where players tend to get a lot of extra damage they don't need is being hyper aggressive on recoveries. So the idea is essentially they'll get knocked away, so something like this, for example, and they will try and make an attempt on the stage, right? The opponent has really good coverage of this space, stage-wise, so they're in a good spot to do it. In this situation, Spargo is going to go for it, but he's going to be successful mostly because of where he's starting from. So he has a lot of height to work with, and as he sort of drops down, he'll have a lot of drift available, but he also still has his double jump here. So when he does it, the double jump, you're going to see it there, but he basically can drift towards the stage and potentially find himself a landing opening, like an opening to land somewhere on this stage. A lot of players will double jump kind of down here or below the ledge, near the ledge, and it basically only kind of allows them to take up this space. Very little can actually be absorbed here. Whereas for Spargo, he basically can reach almost to center stage here. So that's a lot of space for Zomba to potentially have to cover. And at this point, at this height, Spargo also has a lot of distance to react. So similarly to how on stage there's kind of spaces of which we can react from, off stage interactions or recovery interactions, we also want to be able to react to and choose kind of the appropriate response, right? So in this case, he's dropping down. Zomba's probably going to try and cover something, but he basically tries to force Zomba to back up with this double jump, and he's going to take a smaller amount of space. So he's actually going to drift back in over here. You can see this is potentially really dangerous, right? But the pancaking of the landing actually works out here in Spargo's favor, right? Even if, for example, though, if he ends up dropping down here, he was using invincibility, right? So he can't be hit during any of this here. But as soon as he lands, he's going to get his double jump back. So even if he gets knocked away at this point in time, he will still have his double jump. Now, the difference is if, say, for example, someone double jumps from here and tries to go onto the stage, if they get hit by this forward air and their cloud, for example, that might just be the stock, right? There's probably no getting back after you get forward aired away. So you have to be very careful about when you choose to make aggressive pushes on the stage, and the reason it works out really well here has to do with the fact that he's starting from here, right? Not down here or anything, but from up here. So there are situations where it'll be more practical versus, I guess, impractical, right? Um, we'll take a look at this one, for example. Oops, I didn't mean to zoom in. So on this one here, for example, Zomba's going to get a nice big punish, and he tries to drop down here, but gets hard punished, making his attempt. So he basically just tries to kind of drop in from above. Pretty good height-wise, but Zomba's got it covered positionally and catches before the forward air comes out. So now he's going to be recovering from a more conventional angle. He's forced to choose an option because of this, potentially forced to choose an option off of this gyro toss. I'd say he can try and jump over this gyro if he's early, or he can drop lower than it by not pressing anything here, right? But then it starts sort of pushing him into spaces, right? Either he's going to be below the gyro or above it, right? And so this is a way that Zomba can use this to make the edge guard easier. So drops down here, avoids the gyro. But now this sets up for something like potentially, let's say, like a back air or down air even. Like down air would probably be the most applicable here, but lots of different hitboxes, right? And he's going to have to grab ledge most likely here, unless he makes a really high up B here, right? He does have limit, which is nice. He saves his double jump, so now you can see that he doesn't just up B right away. He ends up kind of delaying it, right? He's just chilling, waiting to see what Zomba's going to do. And as soon as he sees this, I think this is when he decides, I'm going to go for an up B, right? And it catches the startup of the down air. So down air is not quite out yet. He also holds down a little bit, so this actually hits Zomba. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. I have a bit of a glitchy keyboard with me right now, so you might be able to tell. Ooh, hold on a minute. Is it actually that? Oh, it is that uncentered. Hold on. Let me make this a little bit better here. Gotta look at the risk of the situations and think the next move. If we don't recover correctly, looking for the better and safest options that lead to other better options. Yeah, you want to try and figure out ways to make your life easier and hopefully not take big risks that have really big punishments for failing. There may be times where you have to take the risk anyways because they're going to cover more or less everything, but like I said, kind of path of least resistance. So yeah, in this situation though, gets the hit on the climb hazard off of a relatively rough situation, but the main reason why it works out here is the move that Zomba is trying to hit is down air. And down air has quite a bit of startup to it, so he actually has to pull the trigger like before he anticipates the travel, right? And so with Spargo having a double jump here, that's a quite large window for up B. So again, gets launched off here, gets sent out. At this point, pretty much as soon as he passes underneath this gyro, at pretty much any point here, he could be hitting up B, but he's not, right? So trying to time something like Rob down air, even though it has quite a lot of active frames, this is a very ambiguous recovery to have to try and cover. And that's what makes it very hard here. So keep that in mind. We're going to take a look at this one now too. So this is Kurama versus Louis Money. So unfortunately for Kurama, or not Kurama, unfortunately for Louis Money, the I guess up B bounces off the stage here like that, right? So he intended to snap, didn't end up snapping, or maybe he didn't intend to snap. It might have been a it's either trying to snap or trying to go in stage. I think it's trying to hit the ledge though. So he gets hit. Still has his double jump, so it's not the end of the world, but he's forced to kind of do an air dodge if he doesn't want to use it up, But by doing this, he basically kind of drops this spot, starts becoming actionable here, but Kurama's chilling near the ledge. Now, for Palutena here, the big thing is that she has some hitboxes she can throw out as kind of like countermeasures. So, for example, like up air, let's say, or like if she was a little higher, she could do like a side B. But the up B itself doesn't have a hitbox, right? And the place at this point where Louis Money is going to have to try and recover to is the ledge itself, especially once he starts dropping down like this. So as he starts dropping down, the big thing that's important for Kurama is basically to just be ready to intercept here, right? Doesn't have to worry about anything else because it's not really a practical position for Louis Money to be able to recover from, especially when he drops down this low. As soon as he starts dropping down the lower magnifying glass, because I think he's expecting a drop from ledge on Kurama's part to have gone out here, but he didn't. The only possible way that Palutena lives this is by grabbing the ledge, right? And so it becomes a very sort of, I guess, obvious position in terms of where Palu's going to wind up here. So even with this delay, Kurama is well positioned, can kind of react to this, the disappearance, and do a nice double jump nair to cover, right? This isn't the end of the world, though. Palutena is able to tech it, tries to up B, but gets two-framed, air dodge, but good coverage, right? So we'll put it all together in a nice kind of setup. Yeah, you can see that it's very well covered by Kurama. And yeah, you can see this is a ledge grab animation, which this is kind of crazy that this hits. But again, it goes to show how this area can get punished, all this stuff in front, right? Without having to actually go out there, right? Kurama could also do a nair in this spot as well too, but by doing this down tilt, it's very low risk, very quick to adapt to the situation. Very cool. Hold on, sorry. Give me a second again. Oh my goodness. So something's clicking on my keyboard, but I don't know what it is. And it keeps like rapid searching on a page. Okay. I have one more interaction that we can look at here. Okay? So we have it here. Just like that. So Kurama does a good job here, but gets launched up way out. Oh my goodness. Once again, getting kind of pwned by my thing. Gets launched way up in the air by this dash attack. Gets kind of pushed to the outside by these side Bs. And the main reason that Kurama doesn't really want to drift forward here is because if he gets hit by the side B, it's over, on this stock at least. So hangs out on the outside. There's going to be some end lag, so he has a chance to kind of drift in. But it looks like Louis Money might be going out there to try and potentially get an edge guard, right? So you can't just kind of do what you're normally doing. Oh my goodness. Eventually I'll get this right. As he kind of drops down here, one thing that Kurama is going to keep in mind is potentially trying to not drop down too low. He could potentially try and just like up B here very early, or like hug the wall for an up B. But he's going to try and, I guess, outposition Louis Money, so to speak. So he kind of stalls in a space where Louis Money can't quite reach yet. Like so. And then really maneuvers around this nair. So now the nair is over. He's able to sneak through. But this is a risky situation now for Louis Money, right? Because now that he's all the way out here, the person who's grabbing ledge first is Kurama, not Louis Money. So now that he kind of grabs ledge here, he may be able to take stage positioning, or in this case here, get a punish. right? And so now that he gets the punish, that just does it, right? So good usage of the aerial space. And yeah, that is basically going to be it for today. Um, the general gist of what I am looking to kind of explain, though, is to pay attention to your opponent and try to create a mismatch in coverage so that you have an opening for recovery. That's the gist. In terms of the execution, does matter a little bit more case by case, but if you keep that in mind, you have a lot of potential in your recovery. Lots of different timing mix-ups, lots of different paths. You don't usually need the full extent of your recovery to grab the ledge, for example, or to make it on stage. A lot of times when we get launched away at like mid%, there's a whole lot of potential. And it's really only when we start losing resources like our double jump. We only get one of them most of the time. Those are situations where it really starts becoming more of like recovery for survival kind of thing. So yeah, try to minimize those situations where you can, but sometimes we can't help it, and we have to figure out a way to finesse them, find an opening. So yeah, that'll be it for today. It's a pretty short stream. Any questions that we have? How are we feeling, chat? And what do we think about the format today? Was it all right? Curious if the whiteboard was any good. At the moment, not really seeing anything, but I'll give some more time still. Okay, I think we are good. So thanks everyone for watching. Like I said, I'm going to try and turn this into a video. If you have any questions in the comments below, feel free to shoot them there, and I'll do my best to answer them. But discussion's always good. All right, we'll end this for today then. Thank you so much, and till the next time.